Well, welcome to another edition of GW Unspoken, where we discuss stuff we don't typically talk about, but probably should. And I've got a very special guest on the line. I've got Steve Nance. How are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Yeah, pleased to be.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining. I was going to say, if I was checking, I know you've had a bit of a busy day. If I checked in with you today and 1's terrible and 5's awesome, how are you feeling right now?
Probably about a 4.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, not too bad. I get a bit tired. I'm getting older. Work knocks me around a bit more than. But I did a bit of training this morning before work, so I got up early to get it done, and we just took the dog for a walk this afternoon. So I've had a pretty busy day, really.
Yeah, well, good on you. That's good. What's something that Steve Nance is really grateful for at the moment?
Just my health. Just trying to keep on top of things. You know, a lot of my mates at my age are either they want to work and they can't work, or they want to go on holidays and they got plenty of money but they can't get around the place. So I've kept myself reasonably fit, and I still work, which and I do good work, so it's not hard. So that's probably I'm grateful for. Yeah,
that's fantastic. I know, and we're doing a podcast series at the moment about the importance of movement. And one of the first guys I thought about was yourself, and I know you helped me through my Cert 3 and Cert 4 with fitness, and I've definitely used that. But for the audience out there who may not know of Steve Nance, which may be rare, but if they don't, how would you sum yourself up in a minute or two? Who are you?
Well, I was a PE teacher in the early part of my life, and became a strength and conditioning coach. But fortunate enough to work at a lot of big and successful clubs. I had 10 years in 3 different stints at the Brisbane Broncos, the Cowboys. I worked with the Wallabies, probably the highlight when it won the World Cup, 99. Worked for the Reds. I went overseas. I worked for 2 clubs in France, lived in France. Then I went to the EPL, worked at Fulham for 3 years, and they're in the Premiership. 3 years up in Leeds with Leeds Carnegie and Leeds Rhinos. Worked at the LTA, ran the tennis program for a year in London, and I just consult now back in Australia, but I haven't had any big gigs, as you call it. But I've had a pretty eventful life. But I've enjoyed it. It's been hard work sometimes. A lot of the time you had to go away from home, but it's been very rewarding, really.
Yeah, well, I was looking through some of the past things you've done, and I was actually going to say to you, which one of those, those rep teams or the people you've worked with, what stood out the most, and you said it was the Wallabies?
Well, the Wallabies were the biggest deal. I mean, I didn't expect to ever go to Carter Farm. I was telling someone the other day, go to Carter Farms Park and get a gold medal whacked around my neck by the Queen. And it was a definite highlight, But other things have been just, I won't say just as important, but very important. I mean, I was involved in 3 premierships at the Brisbane Broncos, which, a lot of clubs and a lot of players and a lot of strength and conditioning coaches never get involved in one, and I was involved in 3. When I coached rugby at Ipswich Grammar School, we won 4 GPS premierships, and that was a big deal because I hadn't won it when I first started coaching in 50 years. So it's a big highlight of my career, that my time at Ipswich Grammar. I found out the other day they had only ever won it 8 times, so I was involved with half of them. So I was pretty pleased with that. But, yeah, they've all been good. Sometimes you don't win, but you still have a good time. Like the time up in Leeds was great. They were a good mob of blokes. It was a really good place to live in Yorkshire. And they're all been good. They've all been different.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we're going to get into that, more that fitness stuff too. But whereabouts did you actually grow up around the Brisbane area? Like I
grew up in Sydney. I was born in Sydney. We lived in like a working class family from the western suburbs, out in Parramatta, actually. I grew up in walking distance from where Parramatta Oval is now, or where the stadium is now. I used to walk to the old Cumberland Oval, and then that was till I was in grade 6 in primary school, and then we moved over to the Northern Beaches, to a suburb called North Curl, and I was then walking distance to Brookvale Oval to watch Manly train, and that's where I got my desire to get involved with. I used to love going. My father used to take my older brother and myself down at night after work, and we'd quite often go down and watch them do their training, because they're all amateur players, not amateur players. They got money, but they all work, so they trained after work. So I used to love going down there and watching them be put through their paces.
Yeah, wow.
Then I got posted to Grafton in northern New South Wales as a teacher.
Yeah.
Then I got a scholarship to go to Texas, so I did my master's degree, so the University of Texas. And when I did my master's degree, I came back, worked at a special school, And then I got a position at Ipswich Grammar where I became subject master and year master and coached their first 15. So I've had a pretty varied time, but I've lived the last 20 years. I've lived overseas for half of it, but yeah, it's been good.
So does that mean, Steve, if you are trained to be in your PE teacher or teaching, does that mean you're sort of well behaved in school yourself?
No, I wasn't. I got sent away to boarding school in grade 11 and 12 because I'd gone from 7A, which is where you started in school in high school, in that it was stream classes, and by the time I got to grade 10, I was in 10D. I'd gone down, and so I got sent away to a school up in Bathurst, in Western New South Wales, and but it was a turning point because I studied hard. I got a scholarship to go to Sydney University, and I wasn't badly behaved. I mean, I wasn't that interested in school. I was more interested in sport, and I tell that story because when I applied myself, the potential was even when I went to university, I wasn't that interested. I just did enough. But when I did my master's degree, I pulled my finger out and really got stuck in. I ended up with what they call in America a 4-point grade average. So I got A's for all my subjects in my master's degree. Jeez. Which was, and I actually got a scholarship then to do my PhD, but I didn't ever go back. But yeah, it's different. But no, when I was at school, I wasn't the greatest student, unfortunately.
And so you said that sport was your passion. Did you do a lot of was it mainly around rugby league and rugby union for yourself?
No, I never really played rugby league. I had a couple of games at uni. I had my first game of rugby when I was about 5 and I was too young. I was under 10s and that, and I just used to love getting dressed up in the kit and going to my older brother. But my father wasn't a bad hockey player and he was a good squash player. One of my brothers was world squash champion, one of my younger brothers. Okay. And we played a fair bit of squash, but I wasn't as good as that. But I ended up being a reasonably good hockey player and I ended up playing for New South Wales.
Oh, wow.
But at the same time, I played, rugby union, and I played rugby union at school. And when I went to boarding school, I couldn't play hockey, so I ended up playing in the first 15 at school in rugby union. And then when I left school to teach, I started playing rugby. But in the interim, I got involved in surf lifesaving quite heavily and rowing surf boats, and that's where I met Rod McQueen, the coach of the Wallabies, that offered me the job, and ended up rowing for Queensland when I moved up here. I was in the Queensland state team in '84, which is a long while ago now. But so I played a fair bit of sport. I did the triathlon series in the mid '80s. So my best finish, I think I came 43rd in the World Triathlon Championships, which wasn't bad for a guy who was just a part timer. But I prided myself on being able to be involved in a lot of sports. I wasn't exceptionally good at anything, and one of the biggest things, the difference that I had is I was always the fittest in the team, because if I wasn't, I wouldn't have been picked in half the sides I played in, because I didn't have that much skill, as much as a lot of my counterparts. But I
was talking to a bloke the other day, Ian Webster, and he's played a bit of footy too, but he was saying the same thing. He said didn't have that much natural talent, but it was all for him. It was just he grew up in St Helens. He said it's just all work ethic. I just had to keep working hard, and I knew I could outwork other people. I'd often get picked for the side. So
yeah. If I hadn't have been the fittest, I wouldn't have been picked in hockey teams, in rugby teams, in rowing teams, because I wasn't as big as a lot of the surf boat rowers. You had to be reasonably big and powerful and stuff. And I made it up most of the time because I was just fitter. And if I wasn't, I wouldn't have got a start. Yeah, right. I knew that. I was honest with myself.
Yeah, but so you've obviously done a lot, like an educated man, moved away from home. And here that when we do find your passion, your purpose, that you knuckle down, you can study, you excel, obviously. So what was it that got you into the fitness? Was it seeing with your dad the footy players and going, "Yeah, I can see that's a drive for me. That's exciting for me." What was the thing that got you right into the fitness avenue?
Look, I think it was role models. Your PE teachers at school, and I lectured a whole lot of teachers the other day about how important the physical education staff are at high schools, and I had a couple of role models when I was down at Mountie Boys High School in Sydney, and one was a first-grade rugby league player, a guy called Lenny Died, who just unfortunately just passed away, but he'd also played for the Wallabies. Okay. And another guy was a guy called Johnny Bainbridge, who was a first-grade rugby union player, played a bit of New South Wales rugby, but they both to me, epitomised fit men, good guys. You know, they did everything. They enjoyed themselves, and so I always wanted to be a PE teacher. And once I got into PE teaching, I sort of wanted to get fitter and fitter. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't really look after my fitness very well. I just used to go along and do stuff, and then when I turned about probably 18 or 19, I started to say, right, let's get into it, and I haven't stopped. I've been going for nearly 50 years.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And you're saying like you're still training this morning and still walking the dogs this afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, has there been like a consistent regime that you've done over the time? Like, have you always done strength training, for example? Have you always done aerobic work? What's worked for Steve Nance?
Oh, look, I did never do any weights when I was a kid, and no one did. You know, no one did any weights, and there was no gyms or weights room. There was one bodybuilding gym when I grew up, but no one ever went to it. And it wasn't until I went to the University of Texas, and one of the guys, I was teaching swimming to people that couldn't swim, adults who couldn't swim, as part of my scholarship and stuff. And the guy that worked at the pool was he worked in the gym as well at the university, and he said, come and do some weights, because he knew I was playing rugby over there. And so he took me for a weight training program. And I remember doing it, and he actually flogged us, and I couldn't brush my teeth that night. I had to move my head, held my hand up and move my head up and down to brush my teeth. My shoulders and arms were so sore.
Oh, really?
And I was never going to go back again and do that. And anyway, 2 days later, he said, "You coming back?" And yeah. So I got hooked on it. And ever since then, I've been lifting, but I've always been involved in aerobic activities. I always, I was a decent runner. I used to, go on a lot of fun runs, the triathlon, the running was my best part. And I can't run anymore. I get too many busted joints, but I still cross-train 3 or 4 days a week. I get on the stepper, the cross-trainer. I've built some grinders. I've got a grinder, rower. I do all that stuff. I used to do a lot of boxing. I haven't got anyone to box with at the moment that I can do consistently, but I like that sort of stuff. And I swim most mornings, like I did an hour in the pool this morning before I went to work, and it's very enjoyable, and especially in the warm weather. But, mate, I've always done it. It's always been, well, even when I go overseas, I try to book in hotels that have got a gym, or I look somewhere where I can hire a bike, or even go for a walk. And we're going overseas next year, and I've got it all organised. About swimming, I'm taking another guy, going away with another guy that swims a lot, so I know we're going to be doing a lot of swimming. But yeah, it's always been a part of my life.
So obviously it's happened with you, and it's become habit forming for you, and who, I guess, part of who you are as a person. What's your, and it's probably putting the spot here, but what's your advice for people who are, maybe 30, 50, 60, middle-aged? How do we get them moving? Because we know the importance of movement. Like, we know how exciting it is for everything. So how do we get them going?
It's a really good question, going. How do you turn that? I call it turning the light on. What's the light turning moment? And sometimes it's almost impossible, but you've just got to find out what makes them tick, and I've had some good success with people, but I find people let themselves go in those middle-aged years, and when they get to 50, 60, they're overweight, they haven't exercised regularly for a long while, and they're starting to get health problems, and then they find it so hard then to get involved in it, and I think people miss that important era when they stop playing sport and they stop exercising, and I work a lot with, when I was running a high performance unit in Toowoomba and for the Darling Downs, and we had a big contract with breast cancer ladies that are recovering from breast cancer surgeries and stuff, and we're looking after their exercise and their rehabilitation. I wrote a lot of programs for these ladies. And a lot of them, breast cancer wasn't going to kill them. It was going to be heart disease or type 2 diabetes or osteoporosis, and they let themselves go for that long period of time. When we scanned them, they were morbidly obese, and it's just a shame to see people like that, because they were probably young and fit at some stage, and gradually just in our society they just let themselves go. And to answer your question, I honestly don't know. There's no one answer for everybody. I can't really question.
We know the importance. Like, if you're talking to some people now, or you're trying to encourage people, like, what have you found even over time for yourself? What's the main benefits for exercise for you?
Well, you talk about movement. If you don't move, you'll lose as you get older. You'll lose your ability to move. And it's one of the worst things you can do is become sedentary and then try to have to move again, especially after a long period of time. And my advice is for people not to stop, no matter what, no matter how sick you are or what sort of injury you got, you can always do something. And that's my philosophy. I mean, I've got a lot of joint problems. I've got 2 busted hips, 1 bad knee at the moment. I've had 2 shoulder reconstructions. But whenever I've done something wrong, I can find something else I can do. And I know I'm motivated to do it, and other people aren't. But a lot of people just don't see. It's just so easy to go and drink alcohol, to smoke, to eat bad food, and lead a sedentary life. It's too easy for us, and they don't realise until it's too late. So, mate, the advice is don't ever stop if you can help it. Yeah.
Does Steve Nance ever have any flat days?
Oh yeah, mate. Even a couple of days ago, I trained a little bit too hard. I'd overtrained a little bit, and sometimes I usually have 1 day off in the week if I can. Usually Saturday or Sunday, but occasionally I have a midweek day off. Okay, it doesn't mean I still go for a walk or something, but I don't do a difficult session. But I plan my week out. I've got weights and a little bit of cardio tomorrow. I'll swim on Saturday. I'll probably go for a walk and maybe a bike ride or something on Sunday. Then I'll get back in my normal routine next week. 3 days a week of weights, 3 or 4 days a week of interval training with cardio stuff, and but I have to. Yeah. I get too tired. I just get fatigued. And my muscles get sore and they don't recover. Yeah. It's probably because I haven't recovered. I've got to give myself a little bit more time to recover these days. But I enjoy it. Yeah. I miss it if I know. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, yeah. What I know, you're doing your masters and stuff. So we could probably talk about this for ages. But how much has fitness and the knowledge of the fitness industry changed in the last decade? Even has it changed a fair bit from the principles of training to what they are now?
The principles of training don't change much. The components of fitness don't change much, but the understanding of those is getting better and better as we're able to use more science to look into how the body works. Things are constantly evolving, but I tell people in sporting context, the young strength and conditioning guys, we're going to try this and try this and try that, but I say to them, look, you get the 98% right, the hard work part right, and then you can try the 1 or 2% stuff. But if you don't get the 98% right, it's not good. So don't worry about giving them special supplements. Don't worry about using a GPS monitor to see how they're going, because you're not getting the bulk of what's happening. And there's no evidence to suggest that any successful team hasn't worked hard. Yeah. It's a very important part of it. But with science, we don't take shortcuts, but we're able to change the way we approach things. Instead of doing hour and a half sessions, we might be able to do 3/4 hour sessions and still get the same benefit out of it. But it's changed, mate. It's constantly evolving. You look at we don't worry about skin folding anymore in teams. They get DEXA scanned. Mm-hmm. We don't worry about trying to think how powerful they are. We've got machines that measure power, just like we can measure how strong they are. Everyone wears heart rate monitors. Everyone wears GPS units when they train. We know exactly how fast they accelerate and decelerate and so forth. We didn't know that before. We just sort of guessed what it was, and you knew what worked. I knew what worked, so that session will work no matter what data you get out of it. But unfortunately, in professional sport, I personally believe that we've gone a little bit too scientific. Mm. We've got too many people working. You go down the Broncos and have a look at how many people are working on the field. I was there. I had one other coach, and we had a big squad. When I was at the Wallabies, I was the only person. A squad of 32 players. I was the only person that went to the World Cup that was a strength and conditioning coach. And now they'd be on tour now, and they'd have 3 or 4 people involved in that. And there's 20-something people involved in into collecting data. A lot of them are university interns and so forth at the Broncos. And I mean, I honestly don't know what they do or where the data goes. I don't know. But to answer your question, yeah, it's changed and it's constantly evolving, and it's a good thing, science, but it's got to be used properly. And you've got to use the data. You collect data, you've got to use it. It's no good just collecting it and having it on your computer and then not giving it to anybody. So you've got to use it. But yeah.
So you touched on that a little bit about, supplements and that kind of stuff. Like a lot of kids who are at school now, and you get the kids who are like year 10, 11, 12, and stereotypically the boys are still asking how much can you bench and all this stuff. And then they're asking me about protein powder and creatine and that kind of stuff. Do people at that level need those supplements?
Well, they definitely don't need it if they've got a good diet, a good balanced diet. And there's no better way to get your nutrients and have it, in food, in good food. The use of supplements is essential in some areas where kids don't get that, or not anyone doesn't get that nutritional component, or they don't have enough of something. There's a massive push in our society for protein, but protein's not the be-all and end-all. Protein is repairs and builds damaged muscle and repairs damaged muscle and so forth. But most of our energy comes from carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is the only thing we can get glycogen in our three energy systems, the only one that permeates all our energy systems. And the other thing with kids, especially when I've worked at schools with rowing programs or rugby programs or whatever, you train at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, you quite often need supplementation because you can't get those supplements that early in the day. You can't eat normal food, and it's very difficult then to recover if you don't have a supplement, unless they have a big breakfast program. But I'm not a big advocate of supplements, even though I owned a supplement company for a while with one of the ex-Wallaby guys. But no, I think they need it and they don't need it. They need it if their diet's not balanced, or the timing's bad. But if they get the timing right and they got a good diet at home, they shouldn't need too much supplementation.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you a bit of a specific question here. If I've got some students coming up to me and they're 16, 17, and they say they want to either bulk, tone, or decrease weight using weights, is there stereotypically a formula for that? So if I'm building muscle, is it like a 3 sets of 10? If I'm trying to lose, is there a formula that you use that's like still a base that kids are recommended to have?
Well, if I'm looking at building muscle, you should be looking at, eccentric loading on time under tension, and that's scientifically proven to be the best method still of increasing muscle size, because you get, the fissure tearing of muscle cells and their repair mechanisms far more efficiency. Most kids get in the gym and they lift as heavy weights as they possibly can, but they're better off reducing the weight, doing slower movements, eccentric movements, when the muscle's getting longer under load, than they are with trying to just push heavy weights all the time. You will get bigger pushing heavy weights, you will get stronger, but if you can get your muscle fibre width thicker, then you've got potential to become bigger and stronger that way. There's no magic formula. I think you've just got to monitor your program. You've got to have, I've been talking about it today, you've got to have a periodised model, a model that goes into a muscle building phase and a strength phase, and then a power and strength or power endurance phase or whatever. If you don't have a plan and just go to the weights room and just do whatever you want, you will not get any benefit out of it. So you've got to have a plan, a scientific plan of, most kids, most blokes, I want to get bigger, and like you say, but they go about it the wrong way. And girls, they want to tone up. Well, they're not going to get as big as the blokes because they don't produce testosterone, but they still can get musculature. They still can look very athletic and lean and slender and so forth. The beauty about weight training is that you don't get a massive caloric burn off whilst you're doing it. In other words, not like aerobic training. You do an hour of aerobic work, I can set my my watch and I'll do anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 kilojoules in an hour. Hard interval training when I cross-train and stuff. And I do a weight training session, and I'm lucky to do 1,500 calories, kilojoules. But the residual effect I get when I go to sleep and the muscle repair, the energy required for that, is an adjunct to my aerobic training. So if I do aerobic training, I get the benefit straight away. With the resistance training, I usually get the benefit over the next couple of days as a repair mechanism goes on during my sleep, which is a lot of kids don't understand that.
Yeah,
a lot of adults understand it. But it's a fact.
Yeah. So you're saying periodization is that even more important than, I don't know if these go side by side or not, but there's some kids saying, well, I might just go and do every single muscle group every second day, so I've got a rest period, or do I do a split program and do 5 or 6 days a week? Is that an individual thing, or?
Yeah, there's evidence on all that sort of stuff, but periodization's a plan.
Yeah.
A bad plan is better than no plan at all.
I like that.
A bad plan will modify it. And if you've got a plan, if your end result you want is getting bigger or you're getting more powerful or whatever you want to become, then you've got to have a plan to get there. You can't just say I'm going to become more powerful and do some power weights and think you're going to become more powerful straight away. And I want to run faster. You can't just do some speed work and not think you're going to run faster straight away. The best way to do it is have a plan, and it's not going to happen overnight. And people are impatient. They don't see that it's going to take a period of time, and everything needs to be planned, and that's where the principle of periodization is very, very important. And it can be as simple as following a sequence of hypertrophy work, getting muscles bigger, followed by a strength phase, followed by a power strength phase. That might be simple. It isn't do 8 weeks of each. The end result's going to be a lot better. That's 24 weeks. The end result's going to be a lot better than if you go into the gym and you do a bit of power stuff and then you do a bit of something else and you do something else. And then you might see someone in the gym doing heavy weights. Another day you might see someone doing a whole lot of endurance work, and you sort of pick and choose what you're doing. That's when you're going with no periodized plan, and that's where you won't get the results.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, okay. So structured plan. Is there? I'm just going to jump around a few questions if that's all right. Just think about your history and stuff. So do you think there's a number one secret ingredient to, being a professional athlete? We go to the professional side of things. Like, is there a number one thing that you've seen that, consistently this seems to be the ingredient that gets them to success as a professional athlete?
Look, when I was at Fulham, we were benchmarked by the AIS as a world-class training facility, which was a bit of I was a bit chuffed about it. And we had visiting coaches from all different codes of sport. We had a lot of AFL coaches came over, and I had the ex-Sydney Swans. I think he's another couple of clubs, Rodney Eade, and he was a famous player, famous coach. And I asked him that question, what's that magic thing you look for in the young kids in the player draft when you go to the player draft? And he said, Steve, the good guys can all run pretty fast, over 40 metres. The timing gets there, and they've all got pretty fast times. The midfielders have got good engines. They can run, 3-minute 30 Ks for 3 Ks or thereabouts. They're all pretty strong. Their vertical jumps are good. I look at their attitude. I look at their psychological profile. And if there's a kid who's got slightly better physical preparation or physical development over a kid who's got not quite as good but has a good attitude, prepared to train and listen, I take the second kid. And I've thought about that, and I can see it. I was at the Broncos when a lot of those kids came from the country, the young kids, not so much the country and the city, and they'd come there and they'd get into that full-time environment. And some of them were superstars, captain Australian schoolboys, and they went by the by because the difference was their attitude. It was nothing to do with their physical performance. So that's my big thing. I like seeing young people prepared to learn and listen. I like anyone prepared to learn and listen. But there's no magic thing, I don't think. But I'll never forget what Rodney said the day I was talking to him about it. And I've spoken to a couple of other coaches about it. I spoke to a guy from Geelong, and he said the same thing. This is quite a few years ago. He said exactly the same thing. We've got to look at guys that are going to fit into our the way we want to play. Rob McQueen had at the Wallabies. He had, what we call it. The All Blacks picked it up, but he had a no dickhead policy.
Mm-hmm.
And in the early days, we didn't have a massive pool of players. He didn't pick a couple of guys that probably should have been picked. I thought they could have been picked, but only because he knew they wouldn't fit into the culture that he was trying to create.
Oh, yeah, I get
it. And I've never disagreed with that.
Fair enough. We had, I remember being lucky enough when one of our boys out west teaching in Cloncurry, and he got he's sort of part of the development squad, 14, 16-year-olds with the Bulldogs. And we were at Lennox Head, I think it was, for a training camp weekend, and we'd obviously have a dinner at the end away from the boys, and we'd chat as coaches, and it was more of a learning curve for me because I was like a sponge loving it. And I think it was the Hughes brothers was running it, and they said, so Gary, who do you think's going to be the number one we'll pick? And there's a little halfback there. He was just an absolute freak. Like, I've never seen him like it. I said, he's number one for sure. And he said, we're going to let him go tomorrow. He said, we just can't coach him at the moment. His attitude's terrible. And we just at this stage, we've tried everything, but we can't, and it won't fit in with our system. And it was just, wow, because it's all about attitude as well, isn't it?
Well, it's you've got to have the ability. It's not only the attitude, but you've got to be prepared to work hard too. And I've seen a lot of people that aren't very gifted that worked hard and got there, and I've seen a lot of really gifted players that were very gifted that weren't prepared to work hard and didn't get there. The days are gone that you can get by on natural ability. They're gone by the by. They're never going to come back again. Unfortunately for them, you got to be prepared to roll your sleeves up. Sometimes you got to be prepared to do extras.
Yeah.
I was telling a story to these people I was lecturing today about. I went to the State of Origin camp, and I was talking to Alex Corbo, who was the ex-Melbourne Storm strength and conditioning coach, and worked at the Broncos, but he was also the State of Origin and Australian strength and conditioning coach. And he was saying that even when he was working at the Melbourne Storm, when they came into Origin camp, he said every program had a different program, but the Melbourne Bucks, they basically managed themselves. They did their weights meticulously, and they used to get into each other if they didn't do it properly. And then one of the Melbourne players would take it upon himself to do extras after the weight session. So they'd go out and do extra ab work and extra glute work. And when the other guys had gone back to the hotel, these guys, I watched them. They were on the lawn. Cameron Smith and Billy Slater and those guys in those days. They were all doing extras on the grass for about 15 or 20 minutes after the other guys had left. And that tells me that, that hard work, dedication goes way above ability. I remember once when I was at Fulham, we played Manchester United, and Ronaldo was playing for Manchester United, and I used to take our boys out for a recovery session, which was like pulling teeth because they didn't want to go back out on the field. And I'd take him back out, and there's Ronaldo. Of course, he'd only come on as a substitute. He only played 20 minutes. He did an extra 40-minute session of conditioning with the strength and conditioning coach. Holy hell. And he was up there doing intervals, 100 repeats and 50 repeats and so forth by himself. And everyone wondered why he was such a good player. And I mean, geez. I said, look at that. That's the guy that has only played 20 minutes and he's coming back out here and he's working his bum off, and he's one of the best players in the world. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's stuff people don't see probably behind the scenes. Yeah, all right. Well, here's one for you. You've probably been asked this 1,000 times, so this is going to be 1,001 for you, Steve. Do you have a top 3 or top 1 impressive athlete you've ever coached? Strength and conditioning? Have any freaks out there?
Yeah. Some blokes are freaks that in different ways. I like the guy who's good at everything. That's got that beautiful muscle fibre type that makes him an endurance athlete and makes him an aerobic athlete as well. But I look at, and probably it relates back to good attitude. I mean, the Broncos. If I look at the Broncos players over the years, you've got to look at people like Wendell Saylor, who had a massive amount of ability. Wasn't a great trainer. He knows I say that about him. But Darren Lockyer was a great athlete. He he had a good engine as well as, he was exceptionally good at certain things. I got Brad Thorne. They were all sort of big. Shane Webke. He came as a not a great athlete, and ended up being one of the best front rowers Australia's ever had. And but I look at the Wallabies, guys like David Wilson, the back rower. He didn't get the plaudits that everyone else got, but he trained hard. He did well at all his profiling. He worked on stuff he wasn't good at. And I like that about players. But you had guys like Joe Roth on the wing, Ben Tune. They were exceptional athletes. They got better and better, and they were dominant. But they'd probably be the picks. But I just like the blokes who like to don't give you any trouble because
it's to your job.
You're not the most popular person sometimes when you're the S&C coach, and you do end up in arguments and why in the hell are we doing this for and so forth. And but I've been pretty fortunate. I've had mostly good blokes, but they'd be probably my picks.
And Steve, do you still get an opportunity to go and do some mentorship or some S&C for the teams, or is it more like you're doing now, lecturing to teachers? And what's the main role you do now?
I've just finished mentoring a whole lot of strength and conditioning coaches on the Darling Downs.
Okay.
That was my main job, and so I was up there 2 or 3 days a week, setting up a high performance centre, and I met with them, basically regularly, and watched them work, gave them feedback, helped them with writing programs and so forth, which is enjoyable. But that's come to an end. I probably did too good a job. I've sort of gone past my use by date, so they're sort of nearly self-sufficient now. But I still enjoy talking to people. People think as you get older you become a bit of a dinosaur. But I like to think I keep up to date with what's going on. I still go around and look at people training. I was telling the young people, these young strength and conditioning coaches up there, what have you done this year that's improved your knowledge of strength and conditioning? And a couple of them said, I read a couple of journals, or and I said, I've been doing this for 40 years. I went to the Brisbane Lions, I went to the Cowboys, I went to the Broncos, and I went to the Firebirds and watched them train and sat with the strength and conditioning coach and talked to them. And I said, I picked up so much stuff talking to those guys and the Cowboys. I don't know if I mentioned the Cowboys, but I sat and spoke and what's the latest trends, what's going on, and people wonder how you know that sort of stuff. Is it because I still have the ability, or will still have the desire to want to learn what they're doing. I'm never going to get involved in it again full time.
Yeah.
It's too big a job, and it's too hard a job for me. But I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And do you have any regrets over your time there, over your time with S&C?
Yeah, I probably should have sort of pulled my head in a few places. When I was in France, I got sacked, not as a strength and conditioning coach. I got sacked as the head coach, and I should probably stayed as a strength and conditioning coach instead of taking a promotion to go up. So I was doing a lot of assistant coaching, and that was a regret that I've always had. And probably when I was at Fulham, I didn't realise how big a theatre it was, the EPL. And I wasn't a soccer tragic, so I didn't sort of get off at going to games and going away. So I used to send the young blokes away because they used to love going to hotels on an expense account and go to run on the field or be on the sideline and warm them up. I sort of didn't really enjoy that part of it, and I probably should have put more time into that part of it. But no, generally I've been fortunate that I've challenged myself with different jobs. Some of the jobs have been hard. You think you've got to uproot your family and go and live in Europe, put them in schools, and it's been hard. It's been hard on my wife, and my kids have enjoyed it. In hindsight, now they talk about what an experience it was, but for them as 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds, it was pretty bloody hard. But I don't regret really doing anything. Probably one of the biggest regrets I have is leaving teaching because I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed PE, being a PE teacher. I couldn't do it now. There's too much marking and too much assessment and too much. I just like the getting out there and getting it moving like we talked about before. That was a really, really enjoyable part of my life.
Yeah, well, I mean, You're never too old, mate. You can jump back in there. You come and
No, that's right.
Well, what's your do you have a 5-year plan now?
I'm looking at, and I've just said it's beyond me. I was helping Brisbane State High out last year in the rugby union with Todai Kefu, Stevie Kefu, and I've agreed to go back and help them again for the next season. And we've been discussing it, and I don't know if it's going to come off, but to go in and do a day's relief teaching on the days I go in and do the coaching in the afternoon, not only to pick up a bit of money, but to make my day a bit more worthwhile. So I don't know whether I'm going to go through with it or not, but that's my plan the next couple of years. But that plus keep doing my consulting work, and I'll gradually not do any work at all, I think, and just spend my days doing a bit of fishing and maybe a bit of surfing and swimming. I've got a house down the beach in northern New South Wales. I take people down there and setting it up a bit more as a B&B and having people come down and train and that, and but just enjoying myself. You know, I like still overseas travelling. So I've got a big trip next year. I'm going to have a big one in 26. Because a lot of my mates, believe it or not, they don't want to travel anymore because they can't walk some too far and they can't get on and off buses and stuff. And I still like to get over there and rent a car and drive and have a look around the place. But yeah, so that's my plan, mate. That's
living life.
Well, I'm fortunate. You know, I can blend myself into retirement instead of stopping, which I think a lot of people make the mistake. But also, whilst I'm working, I'm not working because I have to. I work because I want to. Mm-hmm. And that part of it, I really, because I enjoy it. Yeah, I'd hate to be doing a menial job that you didn't enjoy, and you had to turn up for work because you needed the money still to put in your superannuation or whatever. I'm doing it more for the fact that I enjoy working. But that's my plan, mate. Whether it comes off, I don't know. I don't know about the teaching. That it looks a bit hard.
You can come in for a day, mate. We'll look after you there. No worries. You can put our kids through their paces. All right, mate. I'm going to have a few little fun questions for you, if that's all right, to round up.
Yep.
Appreciate all that knowledge. Is there anything else that I sort of missed that you want to add value to that I want to talk about with movement or strength conditioning?
I've touched on a lot of it. You know, my advice is for strength and conditioning coaches and for people involved in fitness programs, don't take shortcuts. Follow strict guidelines and principles. There's no benefit by going away from those guidelines. There's plenty of ways to do things. I'm not saying don't be adventurous and try other ways of doing stuff, but if you follow sound scientific guidelines with your training, and you can't go wrong. But the other thing is, if you want a benefit out of it, you've got to prepare to put some work in. You can't just go on dumbbells or look at a heart rate monitor and think you're going to get fitter or whatever or stronger. You've got to actually do it. Mm-hmm. And the more time that you have in between when you don't do it, you just lose what you've put in. And so, and get yourself a plan, get yourself a program that's well prepared with an end goal, because I still haven't seen anybody that hasn't achieved high standard of sport or high standard of fitness that hasn't worked hard and had a good plan. But that'd be my advice if I had to give any.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. It's awesome, mate. Nuggets of gold everywhere. So thank you. Now I'm not going to let you off the hook too easy here. This is some really serious, hard-hitting questions. Are you ready for these? These are going to be quick answers for these ones.
Thank you,
Favorite food?
Probably Italian.
What about a favorite drink?
Red wine.
Favorite song or song type?
My favourite song is MacArthur Park. A lot of young people would never have heard of it, but I've always loved that song. It's an old song, but it's fantastic. And that and King of the Road.
Okay. Did you want to sing it right now?
No, I sang it. Whenever I get karaoke, not very often, but every 5 years. It's the only one I ever sing, King of the Road, by Roger Miller.
All right, beautiful. Steve's favourite leisure time activity?
Probably training.
Okay. What about your favourite sport?
Look, I'd have to say rugby union.
Okay.
only because I played it more than a rugby league. But I sit and watch any sport as long as it's good quality and it's enjoyable. I watch the netball, I watch baseball, I watch American football, I watch the whole lot. But I'd say rugby union because I played it. I like watching surf carnivals. I like everything I've been involved in. But yeah.
All right, nice. What about? Do you have a favourite holiday? You said you like travelling a fair bit. Do you have a favourite like a holiday destination or place in the world?
Well, in Australia, we've got a house down in a little village called Red Rock down in northern New South Wales. Only 150 people live there. I've got a house there. That's the destination that's to go to for myself and my family and the extended family.
Mm-hmm.
But overseas, I'm a bit of a francophile. I like going back to France. I like going back to the southern part of France. I lived there for 3 years. I can speak reasonable French, and I really enjoy it. But I like Italy. I like Spain. I like Portugal. But yeah, they've been my favourites.
Okay. What about now? You've had a couple through the podcast. Have you got a favourite saying or slogan?
Yeah, the one I like, if you do the same thing today as you did yesterday, you'll wake up exactly the same tomorrow.
Mm.
And so challenge yourself a little bit today with something. For me, it's computing skills. I mean, I'm hopeless on the computer. I still am. And I still work on it. I mean, I'm literate, but I'm not very literate. And I like to learn different guys showing me something different today. And I like to learn about it instead of getting someone to do it, but do something a little bit better or a little bit harder so you learn something each day.
Mm.
And that's my favourite.
No, that's good. Like we talked about some of the athletes you've seen and, some that we talked about the power and the strength they've had, but have you had a favourite athlete or a team you've worked with?
I'd have to say the Wallabies,
Okay.
but that'd be closely followed by the Broncos. If it was followed by them, they'd be on par. Okay. But the Wallabies, we were very successful, mate. McQueen had an 81% success rate.
That's nuts.
And
that's great.
For an Australian rugby coach, that's unheard of these days. Before or after, and we just had a great time. We just had a really fulfilling time in that when I was there. But I say the same thing about the Bronx. We had good times too. I had good times at the Cowboys, just we weren't very successful when I was there.
Yeah.
The success came later. But yeah, I'd say the Wallabies.
Okay. Do you have a favourite go-to exercise?
Well, I'm big on glute work, on control work, lower abs and glutes. But later on in life, like now, I'm very big on flexibility work because I'm not very flexible. And I now bring flexibility work into my training regime daily.
Okay.
And it's made a difference just in the last couple of years. I'm not a flexible person anyway, but it's helped a hell of a lot with aches and pains.
That's awesome. All right. Here's our next segment. This is called word association. So I'm going to give you one word, and you have to give me one word back that's associated with that word.
Okay.
All right. I feel like I'm a teacher now here. All right. Here we go. Coffee.
Sorry, say that again.
The first word. Coffee.
Coffee.
Coffee is in the morning you drink coffee.
Coffee. Tea.
All right. A cold beer.
Refreshing.
Early morning starts.
Hard.
Lazy trainers.
Disappointing.
Social media.
Be careful.
Mm-hmm. Music.
Very important.
The NRL Dolphins.
Good team.
Queensland Maroons.
Good team.
Oh, I was going to say, because you're a blues man, aren't you?
No, not really.
I've
lived in Queensland longer than I've lived in New South Wales, and having all the boys playing for, we had 10 blokes one year playing for Queensland out of the Broncos. It was pretty hard to barrack for the other team, and Alf and Kevy and that are there, Queensland have played above their weight. I don't care what anyone says. They haven't in the past. It's caught up in them a little bit, but those years they had the best team by far, and they won it.
I thought I was thinking some blues. I was trying to irk you up a bit. That's all right. Good answer. All right, we just got a last segment here. So if you're down to your last $20, Steve, what are you doing with it?
Last $20. I'd probably call a few people that I haven't spoken to for a while that meant a bit to me and be in contact with them. If it was the last $20 and I was going to disappear, that would be what I'd do. But, probably the last $20, I'd make sure I bought some nice wine and some nice food to eat and drink, but wouldn't get you much these days.
No. All right. What if you've just inherited $5 million? What are you doing with the money?
We were talking about that the other day. If I just got $1 million in it, but $5 million, I probably don't need it now. I'd like to disperse it amongst family and probably do a few things, but nothing special. I'm not money driven. You got to have it. I know you got to have it, but I'm not. I'd help the kids out and the grandkids out, pay some school fees and stuff like that, which are pretty hard these days. But no, I don't really know. I'd probably travel a bit more business class when I go overseas and try to do a bit of each. But nothing.
Nice. All right. What if you're down to your last meal? What would it be?
Oh, look, I would think of barbecue. Nice. I used to eat a lot of steak. I don't eat steak as much, but a nice barbecue chicken or barbecue pork or a nice steak, whatever's there, and some vegetables. That'll do me.
Okay. Would you prefer one wish now or 3 wishes in 5 years' time?
Probably 3 and 5.
Right. You know what you'd wish for?
I think to maintain health. That'd be the biggest one. Maintain, family health, not just myself, everybody, and probably, being able to go out with a bang and not a whimper. I don't want to end up in a nursing home. I want to keep my health as long as I possibly can, and so that when I finish my career in life, I'm still doing stuff I really want to do. That'd be my greatest wish, I reckon. Yeah,
nice. All right, this is like I always get funny responses to this one, so I'm looking forward to your answer here. If you're stuck on a deserted island and you can only have 3 other people with you and they can't be your family members, who are they and why?
Deserted island. Jeez.
I must admit, I've had some crackers here. I've actually had one person say, I'd only invite 2 because there's a chance of us having more food and we'll live longer. But you can have anyone known, past, you don't know, who's the 3 people and why?
Well, I was always really impressed by Nelson Mandela. Probably a lot of people say that.
No,
and we were actually supposed to meet him on one of our tours, and he was sick, so we couldn't. We were supposed to go and have either lunch or morning tea or whatever with him. I'd like to spend some time with him. I admire, famous sporting people. Don Bradman. I'd just like to see what. He's a bit of a conflicting character, but and probably someone in the movie world. Probably someone like I used to always watch Charles Bronson movies when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe someone like that would be good company to see what made them tick. But they'd be my 3 at this stage.
Yeah, all the Death Wish movies and that kind of stuff you could talk about. I remember those. Old man used to watch them too. All right, here's your last question. It's a bit of a deeper, meaningful one, but we'll round it up with this one. If I said to you now, what does Steve Nance see when he looks in the mirror? I'm not talking about physically. As a man, what does Steve Nance see?
Probably. If I had to sum it up, I've had a good person, a caring person who helps other people. I'd say that'd be one thing. Probably didn't reach my full potential as a sporting person, but I'd be pretty happy, looking in the mirror and saying, you've done a lot of things. You don't realise you've done so many things until you actually sit down and talk about them. But I'd be pretty happy with my life. I'm pretty happy with my family and stuff, and I'm pretty happy. I'm very happy, and I've got 3 kids, a good wife, 8 grandkids. I look in the mirror and think, I'm part of that, and we're not rich, but we've got enough money to do things and stuff, and we're all pretty healthy. So that'd be the thing I'd be looking at and saying, that's me in the mirror.
Yeah, unreal. Well, look, mate, it's just been a pleasure, and I'm so grateful to get some of your time. Look, I've probably only met you probably half a dozen times, but I know every time I went to, a couple of days, we did our fitness course with you and around the sports academies, and I was always in awe. I was just feeding off your knowledge, just loving to be in your space, and I just think those people you're around from the sporting teams earlier on, and no doubt you work with lots of individuals as well, and now mentoring teachers in your consultancy. And look, I just think you've made the world a better place, mate, and people are definitely drawn to what you're doing. So well done to you. And like I said, thank you for being on the podcast and sharing all your wisdom today.
Thanks very much, Gary. I enjoyed it. Thank you.